And now to the latest on a New Jersey father's agonizing fight to bring his son Sean back home from Brazil. It began back in 2004 when David's wife took their son on a trip to visit her family and never returned. David Goldman is with us now. David, good morning to you.
Good morning, Meredith.
The last time we spoke was in June, and at that point the Brazilian Supreme Court had ruled that you could have custody of Sean 6 days out of every 7, but you had to visit with him in Brazil. The two of you had to be in Brazil. His family in Brazil appealed that decision. Where does the appeal stand at this point?
The appeal, again, that's the reason we didn't jump on a plane and fly down there, because we knew something would happen and that wouldn't be the case. And of course they appealed it, and a decision was made that Sean would stay with this Brazilian guy until the final decision. So,
and do we know when that decision is likely to be handed down?
Actually, I met with some consul officers, an ambassador from Brazil in Washington last week, as well as spoke to some of our government people and the attorneys, and they all expect a ruling that sometime the end of this month, by the end of September.
Do they have any sense of which way this is going to go, or are you tired of listening to optimism?
Well,
when you get it?
I have to be hopeful.
Yeah.
But optimism, I mean, until I'm on the plane with my son and those wheels are up and we're gone, then I'll be optimistic. But the indication is that from the Brazilian authorities, we had the order from the Brazilian judge, good order. We want to continue to follow the rule of law. We want to honor the Hague Convention. I mean, they seem, without saying, yes, we want him home, or yes, they're going to, because nobody really knows, but... And then, of course, our president said that he doesn't have any indications that the Brazilian government is blocking or holding things up. And then he said if we continue to have swift resolutions to this, although 5 years is hardly swift.
Yeah, well, he said he was actually, I spoke to him and I asked him about that. He expressed concern about Sean. He said as long as we're making swift progress, as you put it, to get this resolved, then they're going to keep working through official channels. So you don't believe that they are making swift progress? You think we need to be more aggressive?
Well, I mean, here I get so many phone calls and emails that people say, I've left behind parents, that you're our only hope. You can't give up, because if you can't get your son home in such a clear situation, what hope and what chance do we have? And then I get emails and phone calls saying, look, we had 2 adult journalists in Korea who we were able to bring home expeditiously and swift in a matter of months. And they were there by choice. And then the ship captain, by choice for his job, sailing in pirate waters, we got him out. They say we were a superpower at one point. Here you have a child. He was taken at 4 years old against his will, held illegally, and we can't get him out of Brazil, a friendly nation. He's held illegally, my son, and yet he's still there. 5 years, there's no swift in this.
When's the last time that you spoke with Sean? Either June last time.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to place phone calls at this point? Are you allowed to write letters? Or
with the amount of pressure that they put on him, as evidenced in the court, I don't want to put him in this situation. I call up, and they'll be right there, as they were when he was first abducted, and they start to pressure him and force him. And I don't want to. They've made it impossible to have a normal visit, to have a normal phone call. He just has to come home. They have to do what they need to do, get treatment, get help. But to keep my son and these other children in this country is wrong.
You know, in the midst of all of this, you have helped spearhead legislation that would help other abducted children in other parts of the world, not just Brazil, by penalizing countries that do not honor the Hague Convention, and also by establishing an ambassador at large for international custody cases. Where does that legislation stand?
Well, you know, it's a great piece of legislation that's introduced in Congress that will not only penalize these countries, but the abductors, and hopefully act as a deterrent for the abductors from doing this. And not only Hague countries, but other countries. That shows our country will not accept international child abduction. We're supposed to have hearings the end of this month, possibly the first week of September, on the floor to get this bill, this legislation, into law so we can start. I mean, why I asked, like, what message does this send that Brazil's holding 70 children, and a couple weeks ago we are funding offshore oil exploration in their country, over $2 billion. What signal does that show? You know, we say we want the children back, we write the letters, as our first conversation that we had in September, and they look at us as a paper tiger. And we write letters and we speak, and we expect them to follow the rule of law as we do. And they don't, and yet we still fund, and we need to kind of set limits and boundaries, and things aren't acceptable. And kidnapping our children into these countries is not acceptable.
Well, one thing's for sure, you are not about to give up. I can tell that. David Goldman, thank you so much for joining us. Please keep us updated.
Thank you. Thanks,
you.
Meredith.